Did you know that the richest person ever lived, John D. Rockefeller, owned $1.5 trillion worth of oil? Well, not quite. You see, this is a common misconception. Rockefeller never owned $1.5 trillion worth of oil. You might have seen this statistic thrown around online or in articles about extreme wealth, but it's not accurate. What he did own was a huge percentage of oil produced in America, and that's a big difference. You see, owning $1.5 trillion worth of oil would mean he owned all the oil fields producing $1.5 trillion worth of oil. And while Rockefeller did come close to controlling this much oil, he didn't actually own any oil fields himself. What he did do, however, was build an empire of companies that refined and sold oil, most notably Standard Oil. Today, if we were to combine all the major oil companies together, they would be valued at roughly $450 billion. But back in the late 1800s, Rockefeller's Standard Oil was valued at $1.5 trillion. Now, that's the statistic that gets thrown around. But the truth is that he didn't actually own the $1.5 trillion oil empire. He was simply the founder and CEO of a single company within that industry. Still, that's pretty impressive, so how did he make this happen? Well, if you're ready to go back in time to find out how the richest man in history made his fortune, then give this video a thumbs up and let's jump right in. Rockefeller was born in 1839 in New York to a poor family and a con artist father. From a young age, he valued discipline, frugality, and faith. At just 16, he began working as a bookkeeper, demonstrating his passion for finance early on. By 20, he started his first business, selling produce door to door. He had his sights set on becoming rich and powerful, and nothing would stop him. In 1859, at just 20 years old, Rockefeller and his friend Morris Clark opened a small oil refinery. The Civil War created a huge demand for oil, which caused them to rapidly expand their business. Just 11 years later, Rockefeller dissolved his partnership with Clark and formed Standard Oil Company in 1870. Now, there are three things you should know about the way Rockefeller operated his business. First, he partnered with railroads. Back then, getting oil from the well to the consumer was tough. Rail transport was crucial. So Rockefeller struck deals with railroad barons to get favorable rates. This gave Standard Oil an edge as they could distribute their product cheaper. Second, he was brutally efficient. Rockefeller cut costs everywhere he could. He designed Standard Oil refineries to maximize output while minimizing waste. His bookkeeping skills helped him track every penny. No expense was too small to escape his notice. Third, he acquired competitors. This was the most important part of his success. Rockefeller wasn't satisfied with just growing Standard Oil. He wanted more. If a competitor appeared to be too successful, he'd buy them out. Often he paid handsomely above market value, but it was worth it to crush the competition. Over time, these strategies turned Standard Oil into a behemoth. They dominated U.S. oil production by the 1880s, controlling over 90% of it. That's why you often hear the $1.5 trillion number thrown around. He believed in one thing: efficiency through control. He crushed competitors, absorbed railroads, and dictated prices. His methods weren't illegal back then, but they were ruthless. So now that we've established how Rockefeller became the richest man in history, it's time to ask, how did he lose it all? Well, here's where things get really interesting. You see, Rockefeller's fatal flaw was his obsession with monopoly. Instead of stabilizing and diversifying his empire, he tightened his grip. He pushed for more control over production, transport, and even government influence. But the public and politicians started pushing back. Journalists like Ida Tarbell exposed Standard Oil's practices in scathing detail. The public grew furious about Rockefeller's underhanded tactics. Calls for action echoed across the nation. Eventually, the U.S. Supreme Court ordered Standard Oil to be broken up in 1911, calling it an illegal monopoly. It was a massive blow. The company was split into 34 separate entities, including what would later become ExxonMobil, Chevron, and others. But here's the thing: Rockefeller still profited. His shares in all 34 companies skyrocketed, but his dream of control, it was over. So ultimately, despite losing control of his empire, Rockefeller walked away with more money than he had before. There are three lessons we can learn from this. First, don't let power blind you. As Rockefeller's empire grew, so did his arrogance. He took risks, bought out competitors, and meddled in politics. He thought he was untouchable. But in the end, his desire for total control led to his downfall. In business and life, humility protects you from collapse. Listen to wise advice and stay open to change. Rockefeller was brilliant, But even brilliance without balance becomes a weakness. Second, reputation matters. Wealth is more than just numbers, it's how people see you. Rockefeller became a symbol of greed and corruption. People hated Standard Oil because he became synonymous with unfair business practices. When Standard Oil was broken up, the public celebrated. Your brand is more than money, it's how people remember you. Sure, Rockefeller made tons of money, but the hate overshadowed it. Think about your own reputation. How do you want to be remembered? And third, diversify and adapt. Putting all your eggs in one basket can be risky. Standard Oil was the whole of Rockefeller's wealth. When it fell, so did he. If he diversified, he might have softened the blow. Even giants can fall when they stop evolving. Rockefeller revolutionized the oil industry, but when he refused to adapt to new markets and technologies, his empire crumbled. Rockefeller was a man of many talents, but sometimes having too many talents can be a weakness. For example, he was incredibly disciplined. He woke up at 5 a.m. daily, worked long hours, and was frugal with money. He saved everything he could and invested it wisely. He also believed in treating everyone fairly, no matter their social status. He was generous to charities and churches and was a devout Christian. Unfortunately, Rockefeller's flaws were equally great. He could be ruthless and cunning when needed. He had a talent for manipulation and was willing to use underhanded tactics to get ahead. This often left those around him feeling betrayed and angry. And his relentless pursuit of power eventually led to his downfall. Ultimately, Rockefeller was a complex individual, a mix of strengths and weaknesses. His story teaches us that while ambition and talent can take you far, they must be balanced with wisdom and restraint. Otherwise, you might find yourself at the top of the world, only to have it all slip through your fingers. In 1913, at the height of his legal troubles, Rockefeller decided to step back from Standard Oil and devote his time to philanthropy. He donated hundreds of millions of dollars to education, medicine, and science. He founded the University of Chicago and the Rockefeller Foundation, which funded the discovery of yellow fever's cause. Rockefeller died in 1937, aged 97. He left behind a complicated legacy. On one hand, he was a ruthless businessman who crushed competitors and manipulated markets. On the other hand, he was a generous philanthropist who donated hundreds of millions of dollars to worthy causes. Ultimately, John D. Rockefeller remains one of the most fascinating figures in business history. His story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition, but it's also a reminder that even the most brilliant minds can fall when they stop evolving. Rockefeller changed the way we think about wealth and power. And in doing so, he changed the world forever. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up.